Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamerica.com, America's Voice. And this is the program that shows you how to turn your obstacles into opportunities and your problems into solutions and how to make your dreams come true. And today we have a perfect dream maker to be on the program with me. My guest is Barbara Biziou, and she is a spiritual alignment coach. She's a global ritual expert and a motivational speaker. Barbara taps into her extraordinary journey as a global ritual expert, fashion executive, TV producer, corporate leadership trainer, and coach to inspire, connect with, and empower clients in these rapidly changing and challenging times. Barbara is passionate about sharing the wisdom she amassed from decades of global studies with gurus, spiritual masters, and her own dedicated practices. She blends ancient spiritual rituals with emotional intelligence and strategic communication skills, and guides and motivates her clients to achieve and expand levels of success and create meaningful vision for their lives. She's published 2 books, The Joy of Ritual and The Joy of Family Rituals, which integrate old world modalities, modern psychology, and neuroscience, providing an enhanced roadmap for everyday life. And I've known Barbara for many years, and she is wonderful at what she does. And welcome, Barbara.
Oh, it's so nice to be here.
Thank you. I know that this is the beginning of 2025. Now, I know that a lot of people will listen to this show maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, but we're at the beginning. And I know, Barbara, at the beginning of every year, you do a 12-day intention where it's 3 or 4 minutes. You send it to your list and people listen. It could be on creativity. It could be on abundance. It could be on clarity. And so, talk about the energy of 2025 and what these intentions do.
Well, the bottom line is 2025 is truly the beginning of a 20-year cycle. So it's like we're at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Things are chaotic. There's a lot of breakdown before the breakthrough. Um, A lot of change is happening on all levels, the way we're going to be doing business, the way we're going to use money, relationships, all of that. So for me, it's incredibly important to be grounded, to be focused, and to set intention for what we choose. So, there's so much chaos out there, Patricia. I don't have to tell you. But we don't want to put our heads on, under the sand and not look at it, but we also don't want to become it. So for me, sending out these intentions at the beginning of the year is a way to give us extra support to create our lives. Because the truth is, science and spirituality have come together right now. And we know that unless you change your energy, you can't change your life. So these intentions and just spending a few minutes every day helps you change your energetic field, which then makes you more open to new ideas, possibilities, bringing in new people, and actually creating something different.
Right. And the intentions are they're short, very
Mm-hmm.
specific. It could be very simple, like how can we be more creative today? Draw a
Right.
picture. I mean, they're not difficult things.
Right. And I'm offering them free to everybody on my mailing list. So anyone who wants them just has to go to my website at barbarabiziou.com, sign up, and you'll get them. And you'll even get the past ones that we've done already up to this point. Yeah, I mean, I don't think longer is better anymore. I used to, when I was first starting. I think really just spending, as you said, 4 or 5 minutes on focusing on love, on abundance, on creativity, on communication, all the things that are foundational can make a huge shift.
Yeah. And I just want to spell your name for people who would like to go on your website. It's Barbara, Barbara, Biziou, Biziou. Okay. And also
Thank you.
just to let you know that the platform Voice America, all of the shows are now on Libsyn, Libsyn. So you just go on Libsyn and look for my show on Voice America. And once you find that, you can find the guests. Right. So very happy with that and very happy to share that with everyone. All right. So Barbara, this is something you just said, but I'd like you to fill it out a little more. you said there's maybe chaos all around it, but we don't want to become it.
Hmm.
And how do we do that when we have a lot of anxious people and anxiety around us and we can feel it?
We absolutely. That's why, as you know, I do so much work around clearing energy, whether it's individual or an actual space, an office, a home, because whatever you're focusing on, you're really leaving energy in that space. I mean, think of walking into a room where people have been fighting. You could feel it, you tense up. So, what's really crucial right now is finding ways to go in. And I think what's really called for right now is some quiet time, some silence, some reflection, ways to ground. And by that, I mean really connect to the earth because so many people are just spinning in their minds right now. They're not even in their bodies. And I'm sure that, every other person that you talk to has had an accident. They sprained their ankle, they lost something because they're not grounded, they're not focused. So in order to not take on other people's energy, you really have to be grounded like a tree. You want to be focused, and you also want to become aware of what you're feeling in your body.
Mhm.
So one way to do that is all of a sudden you're feeling anxious to just stop for a minute and go, is this me? Or did I take this on from my daughter, my sister, my boss, one of my friends, the news, and start to discern. It's like a radio show. You're not going to listen to every single show. You're going to resonate with the person who's speaking, doing the show. So you want some discernment here.
Mhm.
And the other thing, and therapists have been doing this for a long time with people with anxiety, is to connect to your physical body. So, for example, you're feeling anxious, stop for a minute, put your hands together, and literally feel your fingers touching each other. Feel the ridges in the fingers, feel the heat in your hands, feel the density, and connect literally to your body. And this immediately shifts you from your mind spinning to being more calm and focused and grounded. Simple things like that. They don't, like you said, with the intention intensive, it doesn't have to be complicated. Yes, if you have major anxiety, you might want to see a therapist. I'm not saying this will solve everything, but it really helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you're saying little things like focus, right? That mindfulness, whether you focus on your hands or you focus on a glass or you repeat a mantra, right? A mantra might help.
Absolutely. Before I get out of bed, I always have a mantra where I'll be saying, I am so grateful for all the opportunities coming my way today. Or I am so grateful for my body. I am so grateful for resources that continuously come to me. I am so grateful for my friendships. I know a lot of people do gratitude journals, which I think are great. But for me, there's something about actually saying it out loud that makes a huge difference. And Louise Hay, who was, a real leader in kind of affirmations, used to say, do it in looking in a mirror, looking at yourself, and just go, I love you, and just talk to yourself. And know that the brain doesn't know the difference between you saying this, feeling it, and someone else doing it. So it reads it as reality. And that's part of the quote trick to create new habits.
Hmm. It's interesting you say that because I think about touch and how if somebody's alone and they don't have touch, they could take a bath, they can give
Hmm.
themselves a massage. I mean, something where they're still getting that touch.
Absolutely. Touch is so crucial. Even I was actually just writing about it today when, your inner mean person comes out and you're mean to yourself and you say something stupid. Why did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Stop. Literally touch yourself, your arms, your shoulders, and just go, I'm sorry. And by gently just touching your arms and saying that, the body reads it as absolute comfort. And
Hmm.
it's very important.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about how the body doesn't know the difference. That's like virtual reality, right? We
In a
put the
way.
goggles on and we don't know the difference between really being there and not being there because we're into it with all of our senses.
Yeah, and it's very much now, quantum physics. It talks about everything is energy. So as you become this energetic match for whatever you're feeling, you're literally creating new neuropathways in the brain. You're opening up for new things. So science and spirituality have really come together. In the early days, probably when I first met you, it wasn't that clear. People weren't talking about quantum entanglement and all of this. Now, it's coming out of everybody's mouth.
Mm. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Barbara about some worldwide rituals that we can use to start off the new year. And she's talked in generality, but what are some things we can actually do? And she's written a whole book about rituals that are wonderful rituals on your birthday, ritual when you get a new car, ritual at an anniversary, ritual just for gratitude. So we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. Barbara's website is barbarabiziou, Biziou.com. And again, Barbara has two books, The Joy of Ritual and The Joy of Family Rituals. So she's really an expert in that at that realm. She really, again, combines her energy and her passion and her knowledge of global studies, spiritual masters, practical applications, communication skills, and puts them all into one so that we can use some of these rituals in a very grounded way. And we'll have a lot more right after the break. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamerica.com. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. And we're talking about having a Happy New Year and a Happy New Year for the rest of the year with Barbara Biziou, who is a spiritual alignment coach, global ritual expert, and motivational speaker. And saying that about being a ritual expert, I'm going to ask Barbara about what are some of the rituals that we can do worldwide to bring in a healthy and happy new year. So, Barbara, I know there are many, but tell us some of your favorites.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, every single culture that I've ever studied starts the new year with forgiveness. They let go of the old. So there's a time when you forgive yourself or you forgive other people, you return things. The Lunar New Year is coming up the beginning of February. You're supposed to pay back all debts. So all over the world, there's really a theme of starting fresh. And as much as you can, I know you can't always, but as much as you can, that's a great thing to do mentally, spiritually, emotionally, but also physically. It's time to clean out your closets. It's a time
Yes.
to give things away.
Yeah.
One of my favorite rituals is in Italy, where they literally used to, they don't as much anymore, throw things out the window on New Year's Eve. A
Yeah.
couch would go flying. But the idea was you gave it to someone else who could use it. So this is a time for clearing out. And also, when we look at a new year, we can't drag all the past in with it because then what happens is we're making choices based on the old, not necessarily on the new. And
Yeah.
this, especially 2025, is a year where we're going to see a lot of new things happen. I mean, just look what happened with AI in the last few years.
Yes.
So there's going to be some really quick, massive changes. We don't know what they're all going to be yet, but we need space to be able to be flexible. So a good ritual to do is clear out some space and then focus on the qualities that you want to bring in, not so much, you know, all of the details, unless, yes, you have a book that you want to do or you have a business that you're running. But in general, what are the qualities? And then who do you need to become to embody that? And that's where we talk about,
Mhm.
really opening up and letting go of that old self-image. Somebody once said you can never outperform your old self-image. So if you think of yourself as a student, it's very challenging to think of yourself as a teacher. If you only think of yourself, as a secretary or whatever, it's a little challenging to think of yourself and embody being a vice president. So on all levels.
Yeah, that's a question I have. So, what about a person who's, let's say, is a secretary and really does aspire to be, whether it's
But
a vice
that's
president?
fine. If that's totally fine, if someone is very happy with where they are, I'm not saying
No,
having anything more is better.
what I meant is that what if the person is there, but they would like to be somewhere else? Maybe
Mm,
not a CEO, maybe a manager.
right,
That secretary or that administrative assistant image is stuck in their brain.
right,
Even though the desire is, I'd love to manage someday, or I'd love to be creative and work on this end, but oh no, no, I'm really here.
right.
How, Barbara, do you help people break out of that so they can actually take action?
Okay, so it's a few things. Number one is dealing with that negative self-talk. Oh, I want this, but I can't have it. The yes, but.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step there is noticing your yes, but. And then I like to say something which I find really useful is just to go, up until now, that's what I thought, but things are changing.
Ah,
And there's something about saying up until now that stops you from spinning into
mm,
that, I can't do it, it's impossible. You
yeah,
don't have to know how to do it, but it stops you from going backwards. Then you want to look at things you aspire, people you admire. What are their qualities, and how could you start to incorporate those qualities into your life? So, and it's not always a quick fix. So, in working with people, how do you bring in build that confidence? And is created by small, simple, structured actions, small ones. So, if I want to start to think of myself as healthier, I start with one sit up a day, check it off my list, success. Okay, I took action towards being healthy. And the brain doesn't know the difference between one sit up and 100. It just knows you want to be healthy, you did something healthy, success. As you know, I've talked about this before. I keep a success jar in my office. It's just a glass jar. I write the word success on it. Every time I take any action, no matter how small, towards my goal, I put a penny, a dime, a quarter, a dollar, a euro in it until it fills up to the top, and I watch it. And as I watch it
Oh,
grow, it gives a message to my brain that I'm succeeding. And
I
that's
like
how you start to build confidence, small structured action. So you want to be a speaker and you've never spoken before, speak in front of one person. And then you eventually speak in front of five and then 10. You build it up. You don't go from nothing to I'm going to speak in front of 1,000 people because that
right,
causes way too much anxiety.
right.
So things like that, but to be able to dream big. And one of the keys for me is I ask people, okay, who do you admire? Tell me who you admire and give me their qualities. What do you admire about them?
Mm.
Okay. So if I asked you that, Patricia, who do
Mhm.
you admire?
Well, it would be someone I interviewed who I is an icon, who I was
Okay.
very blessed to interview, who's now passed, Maya
Okay.
Angelou.
And what are some of the qualities that Maya had that you really
Well,
admire?
I mean, in a way, she reminds me of Mother Teresa. Total forgiveness, total love. The woman is total love, not an angry or mean bone in her body. She celebrates life every day. And then I met someone after I interviewed her who actually was a friend of hers. And every time he would visit her, she would dress up for him and have tea and have tablecloths, and everything was a celebration and kind and listened and just her energy. I mean, I could feel it,
Right.
and then again, I was doing this was about 7 or 8 years ago. I remember just at the end, I was overwhelmed. Her energy was amazing. She was really just such a vehicle and vessel of love.
So I want to throw it back at you. And if you were my client, we were talking, I would have you write an affirmation that would say, I am loving. I am forgiveness. I celebrate life. Because the truth is, you can't see a quality in someone else unless you have it inside. It's
Hmm,
impossible. You can't, you just don't notice it. So the fact that you admire her means that you have all those qualities inside of you. And now it's time for you to start to own them, which you do. You already do a lot of that because I know you and I know you celebrate life and I know you forgive and I know you care about people and all of that. And you do dress up. I've had lunch and breakfast with you. You dress up. So those are like little things to start to move people in a new
yeah,
direction. And then to me, a big key to really manifesting, which of course is now this big buzzword all of a sudden, is to have a strong community around you
yeah.
that supports you. You need cheerleaders, and it doesn't have to be a huge group. Maybe it's just a few, but you need people who, when you're feeling down and you're feeling confused or chaotic, will say to you, okay, that's fine, but I know you can do this. I know this is temporary, how you're feeling.
Mhm.
And what can I help you do to move you forward? It's not discarding how people feel, because right now you don't want to tell someone they're not anxious or they're not sad or whatever, because they are. However, you don't have to stay there. You can acknowledge that's how I'm feeling at the moment. And is this supporting me or do I need to shift right now? Sometimes just being in that almost depressed state and staying home for a day is not a bad thing. You go in. I'm not, so there's no judgment on it.
I was going
However,
to
if
ask you
it's,
that.
yeah,
Should you sit with it for a while, even though it's not pleasant?
I think we need to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And whenever we want to change, there's always a feeling of uncertainty. It's sort of like a kid starting a new school. And in the old school, you were popular and people knew you were a good basketball player or whatever. And now you go to this new school and no one knows you. And suddenly, a lot of that confidence you had is gone. And that's how most people are feeling nowadays when they're trying to navigate this new world. There's a feeling of being, uncertain. And it's like the example I wrote about a few weeks ago in my newsletter about a trapeze. I don't know if you read it, but it's the idea of, you're on a trapeze and you're swinging and you see the other trapeze coming towards you. But in order to grab the new trapeze, what do you have to do? You have
Let
to let
go.
go of the old one. And then for a moment, you're in a void. But
Mhm,
that's where the power is, in that
mhm,
void,
mhm.
because we don't want to constantly make choices
Yeah,
based on the old. We want to make
right.
choices based on the new possibilities. And we can't do that unless we're willing to be uncomfortable and honor that void.
There's a woman, and you probably know her. She wrote a book called Between the Trapezes. I'll get her
Mm,
name. Anyway, she's from New York, and a while ago, and it was exactly what you said. It's the space between.
right.
That's where the growth is, even though it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's scary only because we don't like change.
Yeah.
People, I mean, if you ever around little kids, they could eat the same lunch every single day, and you make them change it and they panic. Or I was doing a corporate workshop, and just as an experiment, I told everyone who was wearing a watch to take it off their wrist and put it on their other wrist. Well, you would have thought I was telling them to shoot themselves. They were panicking. It was like, what do you mean? They couldn't even deal with having their watch on another wrist, or
Mm,
I'll tell them to sit in a different seat. What do you mean? This is my chair. I said, sit in a different seat and see what the new perspective is. People are uncomfortable with change.
mm.
And yet that's where the growth is.
Right. And everything is change. I mean, that's
Hmm.
what life is. Yeah. All right, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about some simple guidelines for setting that vision. So many times we set resolutions and they don't work. So, guidelines for setting our vision and also using our intuition more so that we can follow that and knowing which is real hair intuition, or is it our voice, or is it someone else's voice. So we'll talk more about that with Barbara Biziou when we come back right here on voiceamerica.com. I'm Patricia Raskin. Stay tuned. We, Hi everyone, and we are back. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show, and my guest today is Barbara Biziou. And Barbara Biziou is a spiritual alignment coach, a global ritual expert, and a motivational speaker. And she has worked as a TV producer, a fashion executive, a leadership coach, and trainer. And she also has worked very much sharing the wisdom that she's amassed from decades of global studies with gurus and spiritual masters in her own dedicated practices. Her two books are The Joy of Ritual and The Joy of Family Rituals. So, welcome back, Barbara. And I want to ask you more about ritual and guidelines for setting that vision for 2025 and why and how your intuition is so important to guide you and how
Right.
to know if it's really your intuition.
Right.
Be tricky.
Well, number one, I think intuition is a skill that is going to be needed more and more as we move into 2025, 26, 27. The more we're dealing with AI and things like that, the more we're going to have to discern what's real and what isn't real. And it's not always easy to tell. So as we develop intuitive knowing, we will be able to have a better sense of this doesn't feel right. I'm going to check it out. Or, okay, this feels like it could be good. So part of intuition is really opening up to what I call your higher wisdom. It doesn't have to be religious at all. For some people, this is just your higher knowing. For other people, it's, God, goddess. For some people, it's spirit, the universe, whatever. But it can be developed and it can be taught. And I think that's the thing that's so important. I've been watching people teach it in schools now to young children, and I watch how they thrive, which is really important. The big thing about intuition is you need quiet time. You can't, it's sort of like I always use this example. In New York, many years ago, in the old buildings, there was a talk and a listen button in a building. And to get someone, you went to visit someone, you press the talk button, you go, "Hi, I'm downstairs, buzz me in."
Right.
But unless you press the listen button, you didn't get the answer. So right now, everybody's talking, yappity yap. This is what I want. This is what I want. How do I get this? Blah, blah, blah. But they're not necessarily listening to the higher guidance. So there's so much interference that they're not getting clarity. So
Mm.
you need to, even if it's 5 minutes a day where you practice, you just take a few deep breaths. If you meditate, that's fabulous. But just even sitting, taking a few deep breaths, getting, a notebook and just saying, okay, what's the most important thing for me to know right now? And then just open up and see what starts to come to you. In the beginning, it might feel like you're making it up, it's just your voice. But over time, you're going to groove a connection. It's like, no one knows how radio works. No one knows how the internet really works, but yet we know we can communicate, right? So you develop a communication system where you start getting information. You do things like I call spirit walks, where you take a few minutes and you go outside and you go, okay, what do I need to know? And then you suddenly notice what's catching your attention. Maybe you're noticing families with little children and you're going, oh, I'm missing that in my life. I want to be with
Mm.
my family, or I want a family, or, whatever it is. It's the same way people used to go to a bookstore and randomly pick a book, or they open a Bible just to get some information. Because the more we're doing it with intentionality, the clearer we are and the stronger the pathway. So that is really one way to really develop your intuition. There are
Yeah.
many, many ways, but again, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And I did interview a whole bunch of little kids who were doing this. They were 9, 10 years old, and they have 10 minutes every morning that they do this and 10 minutes every night that they do this. And they've really developed incredible skill.
Mm.
So
So
you
it's
have to commit. You have to make a commitment. Is this something important to you?
right. So it's really paying attention and paying attention to what you're really feeling.
paying attention to what you're feeling, and you can test it out. I mean, you could test, like I live in New York, so sometime I'll test out, okay, should, you know, should I be taking the subway right now or should I grab an Uber? And I notice what comes, and then I check it out later. So sometime I get a message, which I did recently, don't take the subway, and for no reason. And I didn't listen. Okay, this is another thing. I did not listen. I said, oh no, an Uber's too much money. I don't want to do that. I took the subway. Guess what? The train broke down. And I was
Oh,
sitting in the train for about 15 minutes, which then made me late for my meeting.
mhm,
And, all this stuff happened. If I had listened to my intuition, even though some part of me said, oh, I don't want to spend the money, I would have gotten there on time.
mhm.
So again, you want to practice. And,
Yeah.
I don't recommend doing predictive things, because
Mhm.
that's too crazy. But things like this are different. Like what's a good food for me to eat now? Practice seeing what your intuition tells you. Maybe it'll say, don't eat this, eat that, because your body needs that. It has knowledge.
What I find, Barbara, and I'm fairly attuned, but what I have found is that when I'm moving towards something or something comes in my mind and something just is like an energy that forces me. I can't explain it. It just says, do it. It's
Hmm.
like, push. And it's very, very powerful and strong. I follow it. And it's
Right,
pretty much always right. But it's just, it's hard to explain it. It's almost like I feel like there's something behind me pushing me.
right,
And so those I have not been wrong with. Sometimes it's that, well, I don't know. I really feel this way, but I'll give it a break, or I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Or, well, and I try to rationalize.
right.
That's often where I go wrong.
Listen, we all know, you meet someone and there's a red flag. You just feel something's off. You don't know what it is, but you need to trust yourself. And again, it's a process. And I've used this to do huge business, PR campaigns using this technique. So you can use it in very positive ways that can increase your money flow and your business as well as relationships. You just get a feeling, I don't know if there's something off about this person. It doesn't mean you have to see them, but be careful. Pay attention.
Yeah. How do you use all that, Barbara, to set your intention and vision for 2025?
So, what I do in my process, which I do in my vision workshop, which is coming up the end of January, is always to start by reviewing last year, seeing what worked, what didn't work, what still has juice for me. It's like some things you loved and all of a sudden you don't love them anymore. Same with food. So I take an inventory, then I do some work around
Mhm.
releasing any of my limiting beliefs, things that maybe I'm holding on to that aren't supporting me. And once I do all that, then for me is I meditate and connect to that higher wisdom and start to bring in new energy. And from that place is when I start to make my vision board and set intentions. And if I'm not clear on exactly what it is, I get clear on the qualities. I want this year, for me, like one of my words this year is curiosity, to really not just immediately shut someone down because they think differently than me. I'm curious about what all this new thing is. Or
Mm.
maybe another thing might be self-compassion. So instead of being so hard on myself, I decide this year I'm going to be gentle with myself. So you can start with those qualities, and from the qualities comes something else. Once I was looking for a new job, I was transitioning out of the fashion business, had been in it for a long time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I did know the qualities. I knew I wanted to work with conscious people. I knew I wanted to work where I had a short commute because I had a young son at the time. I knew I wanted it to be creative. I didn't want to have to do the same thing every day. I knew so I had a whole list of these qualities. And then, quote, out of the blue, which we know it wasn't, I was offered a job doing casting at CBS on a TV show.
Hmm.
Nothing that I was prepared for, nothing that I had even thought about, but it had every quality that on my list, every single one. And
Wow.
it wound up leading me to a whole other career in television. So that's a way when you really don't know, get clear on the qualities. And then it's interesting how the rest starts to fall into place.
Yeah. Yeah. Those qualities, as you said, it could be kindness. It could be, as you said, curiosity. It could be comfort.
Could be comfort, or for when people are looking for jobs, it could be, I want a job where I'm working at home part of the time, or I want a job where I travel, or I want to be in a community, in a group that we do a lot of brainstorming together. Or other people will say, I want to be able to be very independent and work independently, and not have to go into the office. And, everybody's different. The same with relationships. What's important to you in a relationship? you
Yeah.
know.
Be very different for someone else.
Yeah, very different.
So, Barbara, before we go to break, tell people how they can learn about your vision workshop. And again, remember the show's evergreen. We're now looking at January 2025. But if people listen afterwards and they're interested, they can write to you, Barbara at barbarabiziou.com. So tell
They
us about
can
the
write to
workshop.
me, and I also do private vision workshops. So if a small group of people wants to do it or a company wants to do it, we can set up private visions, or I could do individual visions for people if they miss the workshop, although it probably will be recorded, so maybe they'll have access to watching it.
Good.
But it's the 24th and 5th of January in New York City, and it will also be live streamed, so people can join via Zoom if they can't come in person.
Okay. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about something that everybody talks about at the new year is the New Year's resolution and how do you make it stick when most resolutions don't stick. Barbara's going to give us her thoughts on that when we come back. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamerica.com. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and we are back. We are back talking about the new year, about health and happiness and making your dreams come true. And we are with Barbara Biziou, who is a spiritual alignment coach, a global ritual expert, and a motivational speaker. She's been a TV producer, a fashion executive, a corporate leadership trainer, and she's very passionate about sharing the wisdom that she's had from decades of studies and global studies with gurus and spiritual masters in her own dedicated practices. So she's combined both and can really help us to develop rituals in our own lives in ways that can bring us more joy and happiness and success. So welcome back, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara's website is barbarabiziou.com, Biziou.com. All right, let's talk about the question that everybody asks about, and that is, how can you make your New Year's resolution stick this year? And
Well,
how come people can't make them stick?
yeah, I mean, most people, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work because they're making these huge resolutions. It goes back to what I said before. I'd rather see people have a few small structured changes that they want to create rather than these big, resolutions. Everyone's joining the gym because they want to, lose 20 pounds and be in perfect shape. Everybody, is going on a fast or they're giving up sugar or I'm not saying these are bad things, but they're too big. And
Mhm.
it's just most people just can't handle it. It's just too much because it takes at least 66 days to change a habit. So unless you're willing to do something for at least 2.5 months, it's not going to work. It's not going to stick. That's why people have all these great resolutions and then something happens. They don't, it upsets them and suddenly they're eating a chocolate cake and drinking a bottle of vodka. It's because it hasn't kicked in yet. You haven't created that new neural pathway. It's like
Mhm.
water going over a rock to try to change the trajectory. It takes time to groove a hole in that rock to make the water go in another direction. So throw out the idea of resolutions and just look at one or two little things, symbolic gestures that you want to do. Once you do them and you're success, then you move to something bigger and then you stretch and you do that and you succeed. And then you go, I did it. And then you move to something else. And that's how you make lasting change.
Mhm. Yeah. Everybody's looking for the quick fix.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
that just doesn't happen. Yeah. So, one ritual that you have done in the new year that I loved, and you did a video of it recently, and I'd love you to talk about it. And I encourage people to find it on Barbara's page. It's the money ritual where you
Oh,
actually throw money in the door. I
right.
just love it. Talk
I
about
love that. Well, the idea is that you take whatever is representative for you of abundance. So for most people, it's money. It could be dollars, it could be coins. Some cultures, maybe it's beans or cowrie shells, whatever. But the idea is with the money is that you have a bowl of money, and you could do this any New Year. So I do it, January 1st, but you could do it for the Chinese New Year. You could do it for the new season. You could do it on your birthday anytime you're starting something new. You take a basket, fill it with all this money, you bless it with the qualities and the things that you truly want, and then you throw it in your front door if you're home, or if you could do it at an office, just throw it in and you leave it there for 24 hours and then you give it all away because you're affirming to the universe, I already am abundant, I already have it, and now I'm generous and I'm giving it away. So I put it like in little bags and then I randomly hand it out to strangers, or I gave one this time to someone who works in my supermarket. I mean, someone I met on the subway, you just give it to them. And it's a great feeling to be sharing that and knowing you are already abundant. We have so
it.
much and we focus on lack. We don't focus on what we already have. And the key is gratitude again. Go back to Maya Angelou. Focus on what you already have, be grateful for it, and that plants seeds for more.
Mhm. So true. I love the story of the giving away the money on the subway or just to somebody who is in the store that you often visit.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're in a work environment, you could do a version of it where you're just giving random acts of kindness to other people you work with.
Mhm.
Again, that creates community. That's a great ritual of connection.
Yeah. That's another question. How would you apply this at work?
Well, there are a lot of business rituals that you can do. Like I said, that success jar I use with the team. So the whole team, will put something in it and they'll watch it grow. You create connections where, during COVID, people used to go and have just say a drink together on Zoom. So, but it brought people together. So you have in the old days when people went to work, they'd have a birthday cake for every month.
Mm,
Whoever's birthday was in January. Again, just to create structured situations where people can come together and
mm,
appreciate each other. I find appreciation rituals at work are crucial. When you know that you're appreciated, you work harder, you care more, you're more invested in the outcome.
mm.
So, all of those things. I love that Harvard Business Review is writing about business rituals now. I love it. So you can just Google things and, business rituals, and people are doing it because they know it changes the brain and it changes the atmosphere of where you're working and it makes people happy.
Yes, and I've done workshops with leaders that do just that, where we will do exercises on, and it can be remote with 30 people, and
Right.
in a course for 5 days. And you say, now we'd like you to give a shout out. Think of somebody this week in this class who's helped you in some way. And just get, and then it's amazing, that company, like, gee, John really helped me. I never thought of that before. And I'm going to
Right.
use that with my group. And it's really, you're right, it's very empowering.
It's very empowering. And one client of mine, which I love that he did it, his team closed a big deal, and he wanted his team to feel that that they were responsible for it. So he had the finance department give them a copy of the check. I think it was $10 million, and he
Mm.
he brought them together and he passed the check around so they could all touch it. And just seeing and feeling that check, knowing they were responsible for it, brought that whole team together.
Wow. Well, that's really powerful. Barbara, how would you like to close this interview? What would you like to leave our listeners with about being prosperous in the new year and just in general?
I really think that everyone's gifts and talents are really needed this year, tremendously. So live your life so that people can find you.
Wonderful. And again, how people can find you.
Go to my website, barbarabiziou.com. Go to my Instagram, my LinkedIn, Facebook. I post videos, all kinds of, I have a free newsletter once a week. That's a great way to get connected to a community. And reach out to me if you have a question. I'm happy to answer it.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for your inspiration and your wisdom, Barbara. Thank
Uh,
you.
my pleasure, and thank you.
All right, stay on the line for a minute. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. To find me, go to Patricia at patriciaraskin.com, and I send out a monthly newsletter with all these wonderful guests like Barbara. Also, if you'd like to get your positive message out the way we're doing this on this program, and you'd like your own podcast, I've interviewed over 5,000 guest experts, and I'd love to help you. So find me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. Remember, stay healthy, stay happy, get the support you need, and know you can make your dreams come true. Until next time, I'm Patricia Raskin. Happy New Year. Bye for now.